They say beauty is fleeting, but at 57, I can still see myself in the mirror and feel proud. My skin, still taut and radiant, does not give away my age. My hair, often admired for its rich russet luster, cascades down my shoulders. Perhaps it's the discipline of years spent taking care of myself, exercise, healthy eating, a hint of vanity. But I look and feel younger than my years. My friends say I could pass for someone in their early 40s, and I don't argue. Life has been kind to me, or at least it has allowed me to keep my youthfulness for a while longer. My husband, John, has been away for the past 6 months visiting his family in England. It was supposed to be a short trip, but as always, family matters dragged it out. He insisted that I go with him, but I knew I couldn't. Someone had to stay and look after the house after all. Besides, the last few years hadn't been easy for me, and I wanted to be alone, to sort out my thoughts, to be with myself. My daughter, my beautiful Sarah, passed away 2 years ago. Her death left a gaping hole in my life that I could barely comprehend. But her husband, David, remained. David, who had been a part of our family for almost a decade, and who now seemed so lost without her. He had nowhere to go, so I offered him our home, my home, as a safe haven. It seemed like the only right thing to do. After all, Sarah would want me to take care of him. In his grief, I saw a reflection of my own grief and realized that we could help each other heal. It started innocently enough. David moved into the guest room, and we found a rhythm to our days. He worked, I kept busy with my business, and in the evenings we had dinner together. It was comforting to have someone around. I got used to his presence, to his laughter, which gradually returned, to his quiet way of listening when I talked about my day, to the way his eyes lingered on me, as if seeing me for the first time. I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. But there was an evening, one quiet evening, when it rained relentlessly outside the window and the world seemed to shrink to the two of us, warm and safe inside the house. We sat together on the couch, a glass of wine in each hand, and the silence between us was different, tense. I could feel his gaze on me, and when I looked up, there was something in them that I hadn't expected. A longing, a need that matched my own. I wish I could say I was hesitant, that I was thinking of the consequences, but I really wasn't. I leaned closer and he didn't pull away. I breathed in his ear, and not only that, you're all adults and know what I'm talking about, and in that moment it was like the world fell apart. This was wrong, I knew it. He was my son-in-law, my late daughter's husband. But in that moment, all that mattered was the warmth of his gaze, the way he held me in his arms, as if I was the only thing tying him to this world. From then on, our bond grew, a hidden, joy-inducing connection that we both knew would never see the light of day. We were cautious, always cautious. We didn't talk much about what we were doing, never labeled it, never acknowledged the depth of what was happening between us. We just let it evolve, each day bringing us closer together, each touch becoming more familiar, more necessary. It was exciting and scary at the same time. When John was thousands of miles away from us, it felt like we were in our own little bubble, in a world that existed only for us. We cooked together, took long walks in the evenings, shared stories we hadn't dared to share before. I found myself opening up to him in ways I had never opened up to anyone else, and he did the same. We laughed, we cried, we hugged each other when the weight of our shared grief became too heavy. And then there were the nights, the stolen moments, when you would come into my room to say goodnight, and exactly what you thought, and I would come into his. Those nights were filled with a magic that surprised us both. We were like two people starved for affection, for love, and in each other we found comfort we didn't even realize we needed. It wasn't just physical, but an emotional connection that transcended the roles we were supposed to play. As the months went by, I realized it couldn't last. John would be back soon, and things would have to go back to normal. The thought of that filled me with dread, the thought that I might lose David, pretend that nothing had happened between us. But I also knew that what we had was impossible to keep. It was a beautiful, fragile thing, and perhaps it was meant to be fleeting. Now, as I sit here writing this, I wonder if I will ever feel that intense, all-consuming connection again. It may have been a mistake, but it brought me back to life, reminded me of what kind of woman I am, of the desires I still have. And for that I will always be grateful.